Good evening. Call to order the, what day is today? May 11th, meeting of the Poolsville Planning Commission. We have everybody in attendance. Wade Yost, Town Attorney Jay Gullo, John Strong, and our full commission. Have any citizens' comments on agenda items prior to getting started? Steve Bolter, did you want to comment now or later?
Oh, I thought it was after the presentation.
That's fine. Yep, thank you. Have any announcements from the town staff?
No announcements.
No announcements?
I don't have any announcements either.
Very good, thank you. Has everybody had the chance to review the minutes of the April 13th meeting? Yeah? Any comments, edits, additions, corrections? No?
I make a motion to pass, or to, what am I?
Approve the minutes?
Approve the minutes of the April
13.
13th Poolsville Planning Commission.
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye? Two abstain from, they weren't here, yes. New business. We have the Willard Project Preliminary Plan. Who do we
Chairman, if
have
we
here?
could start out with staff report from John first on that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hey, wait, is the audio working? I had someone send me a text message saying that there's no
So,
audio.
so the
without-
live stream was going, but I don't turn the power on for the sound until,
Okay, so it's probably good to go.
Good evening. The Willard Project Subdivision Preliminary Plan was submitted to us on January 25th. We've reviewed the plan and had several comments. None of the comments were of a nature that would stop the plan from being considered. We did get revised plans came in on 4/28 and also 5/3. Those revised plans have not been reviewed yet. We suspect that many of the questions that were asked will be addressed within that plan. Many plans. So we think that once the review's done, we'll make another comment letter on that. The checklist was attached of items that were reviewed and commented on. And there are a couple items that still need to be addressed within the checklist, which normally would not be found within the plans. So that's where we're at. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm James Clifford of the law firm of Clifford, DeBilius and Boynton. I'm the attorney for the Willard family.
My name's Dave Ager with Townscape and land planner for the project.
Welcome back.
Thank you. You have before you a lean, mean fighting machine. We're going to keep the presentation pretty brief. You all have known this plan for several years now, so I'm going to discipline myself, and rather than talk at will, I'm just going to read my presentation, 3 minutes if it goes well, and then we'll be off and running. So the history of this plan, for those of you that don't know it, the very few of you that don't know it, after the Wilshire debacle of a number of years ago, we held a meeting in May of 2019, a community meeting at my barn on Cattail Road. About 50 people attended. That was sort of a kickoff of an envisioning and an extensive study of how this property actually ought to be developed and how it should be designed. We met with a lot of individuals, had multiple meetings with Parks and Streets Board, Historic Medley District Board. Even the moms of Poolsville gave us some great advice. All these groups brought good ideas to our plan and were incorporated in the plan before you. As also, many of the core decisions that were made early in the project actually came from the Protect Our Poolsville Citizens Group survey that was done during the first plan. It gave us a lot of insight in 2018. We took those ideas. Some of the examples of that is no townhouses, scale of the housing. They had an expert that explained that the scale needed to be downsized to properly fit into the space. So we diminished the size of the housing and the square footage by about half of the current marketplace for houses in Poolsville right now and its surrounds. We reduced the size of the homes, putting them on smaller lots. We hope that this addresses the community's desire to have more opportunities to provide housing to young couples, starting families, and older couples moving down into smaller accommodations. With only 62 houses proposed, it's possible this new home inventory will be bought up in its entirety by our existing Poolsville residents. We did do some refinements. I think when John gets a chance to look at the changes, Dave and our engineer Jeff went quickly at it and made the changes, the refinements. These are ones that were made since the overlay zone recommendation, but when we came to you as the Planning Commission, asked for a recommendation in May of 2021, the plan has changed since then, based on recommendations by you all, by the Planning Commission, by the town commissioners, and by the town staff and the engineers. These will be highlighted by our team land planner, Dave Egger of Townscape Design, in a minute. What we've done, where we've been at since we last saw you, is we got the water and sewer category change made. It was W6, S6. It is now W3, S3 as required. That was done in August of 2021 by the County Council as recommended by the Department of Environmental Protection. Since then, I think Martin might have been the one, or Commissioner Radigan might have been the one to suggest a private water study, and a private hydrologist was hired by the town, validated the town manager's opinion that Wade had given us years ago that the water supply in Poolsville was more than adequate to provide service to 6,500 people population or person population. That was the target of the master plan, even in the hardest times. And this was presented by Kathy Mim to the Town Commission November 1 of 2021 and reported in our wonderful Monocacy Monocle on November 5th, 2021. The Willard project was anticipated as a user within that 6,500 person target. Last of all, we still do not have a builder. That's by design. The family has not opened up discussions with any builders at this point. We thought this project should not be driven by builders' financial decisions, but rather by the Willards and the town's desire to create a unique plan, an opportunity for the town to fulfill its own vision for the space. The Willards hope to find a builder that will embrace their dream and to build an innovative and perhaps award-winning housing project here in Poolsville. Quality of design and building materials should allow the Willards to achieve their other goal. I won't say unspoken because Billy's made it clear that the neighborhood lasts well on to 40 or 50 years from now and look as good then as it does now. This is a legacy project for the family. Now I'm going to introduce you to Dave Egger again to present the plan with the changes, or he tells me the refinements that were made since the last presentation to you guys when we were seeking your recommendation for the overlay zone. Afterwards, we'll answer any questions you have regarding the proposed plan. Thank you.
Chairman Buck, can I get up and walk
Yes,
over?
please do,
Be able to
yes.
hear me okay? Great. The plans that were submitted, good evening, everybody, by the way. The plans that were submitted, this is just a color-coded version to help, visually help you see it from a distance. This is the preliminary plan, and what you have in the dark blue are the dedicated parks, the dedication proposed for the extension of a sidewalk or road from Classway, HOA green space, natural walking trail, sidewalks, multi-use, 8-foot wide asphalt multi-use trail per the streetscape plan. And there's 3 amenity areas, I'm sorry, that's 4 amenity areas, one which is encapsulated in the streetscape plan. And so this plan is nearly identical to the concept plan that you reviewed during the village overlay zone process. And so this plan, which I believe everybody has a copy of, The items in black are refinements since the village overlay zone, so those are slight changes from then to now, and I'll go through each one of them individually. And the items in blue are changes from the staff comments we received about a month ago. So first of all, number one, we've widened the area between the John Poole house and the first house fronting on the park. And that came out of the discussions during the village overlay zone process. So this is the first time we've been able to see a plan from that, with that change. So that's been widened, and the lots have been reconfigured in that area. Item number two, there was a lot located internally to that block. That's been moved over here. So that's what number three refers to. Number four, this portion of the plan was intended to be a stormwater management facility. It's not required, so it's going to be open space. We haven't changed it, except that the stormwater will not be there. Item number five, we widened the dedication area for the Glassway connection so that a sidewalk, as proposed by us, can be implemented, but also a full roadway can be implemented if that's the desire of the town. And then finally, this is not on your plan, and this was added, but there was a access point here off of Street C to serve these lots that front on Fisher Avenue. That's been removed to accommodate stormwater, and it's been extended from this HOA portion here to serve those lots in that area. We're still avoiding any driveways on Fisher Avenue as a result of that. Now, there are several items that are identified as 7. What they really are is changes to the landscape areas on the landscape plan that we proposed. We had our landscaping shown too close to the stormwater management facilities. John Strong advised us that we needed to shift things around, and that's basically what we did. So those are just changes to move that landscaping around, and I think it may be a little better, a little more illustrative on this plan. This is a copy of the landscape plan, so you can see the forestation proposed, street trees, individual trees, and so each one of these areas is a slight refinement. For example, this one, there were trees proposed in this area, they've been removed along the John Poole house. This area here has been shifted to the west. This area here has been shifted to the west and widened. This area has been modified slightly. As we were discussing, this area is now a landscape area. It's not a stormwater management facility, so that's why that's noted. And this area here is a proposal for additional landscaping within the dedicated area for the park. So those are the changes to the plan, and I think I'll stop there. I'd be happy to talk about anything else in detail or answer any questions you might have.
Let me take one more moment. There's some overviews that I want to be sure you guys, your memory plugs into. Connectivity between the commons on this side of the project and the new commons, we call it the Willard Commons on this side. There was a desire to get both, I think it was the moms of Poolsville and the Parks Department, and you guys actually all talked about having that visual, a corridor basically to open up a visual connection between the two. So that's here, that's been in the plan all along. There was a comment that we needed to have a trail going through the buffer area. Dave has written in that trail. It connects basically down to the common area here. This is the Willard Commons, which would be owned by the town, and it dumps you off down there. But there is some connectivity to that trail and also access to John Poole House. There's an access here with a roadway here, a green roadway, so to provide the access that we have promised John Poole House. And we're wanting to discuss with you all the viewscape of that from Fisher Avenue and making sure that everybody feels that we've opened that up enough that the John Poole House would be more visible. That's a really important element to this. Over here, you'll see that David has given real detail. I told him I wanted to know what this looked like, what these loops look like, these common areas or these community areas. what do they look like? So he's done a detail of those, and I think he has them.
Yeah, they're in the PowerPoint that.
Oh, we lost our PowerPoint.
But let me see, I think I might have a paper copy.
Not having
It's
that
not-
ability, but it's important you understand what these community areas are, so you can understand how they work. But this is a community that opens itself up to the rest of the town. It's not closed off, it's not an enclave. You don't go in and not come out. Everybody's gonna have, access to be able to go either by trail or by road or sidewalk, and transverse this area from east to west so they can, get to where they're going. It's gonna make it a lot easier to get to this end of the pinch point down at this end of the town. And the tot lot that's designed for here, will be right up against the commons here, so that folks that are in the commons, if they desire to have their kids playing here, it's a community park. It's not gonna be something that's just, we got that message loud and clear, that this should be, these amenities ought to be something open to the community. So that's what's happening here. And there's a picture Dave included that is an option that was voted on, by a number of different groups, I believe yourselves as well, that showed this as sort of an agricultural theme, type tot lot, and there's a picture that gives you an idea what that would look like. So I just want to be sure you guys understood that all those components that we've talked about over the years are all still in the plan, and they were all, you know, designed to respond to the comments that we've gotten from different groups as to how this ought to look.
You mind if I ask a question?
Yes.
I thought I remember that you all had a dedicated walking path that went from like Wayland Commons to over to John Poole House that was not a road, but just a dedicated walking path. Is that in there?
It's a sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
sidewalk.
it's-
And there-
Has it always been a sidewalk?
yeah.
It's
Okay.
there, and yes, it's always been sidewalk.
Okay.
There was some discussion early on about whether there should be a road connection there or
Yeah.
not. That was very early, and it was decided later that.
The other thing is the I think you know, if I'm understanding Wade correctly, we've talked about this extensively. The water and sewer capacity is there for this project, but I do think that like when he was saying like there's plenty of water for 6,500 people, that might not be the case anymore necessarily. Is that right? Just as an
Well,
aside.
no, take in consideration
Yeah.
as far as what the Kathy Mims report and what our state report says.
Right.
There, it looks like there is right now, yes, for this.
Okay.
Not to exceed, certainly.
Great. Gotcha. Okay.
I told Randy I would quote the monocle if necessary about the water report. So if you look at November 5th, 2021, that question's addressed on the front page, and it does make it clear that there's enough there for 6,500 persons, which I think is consistent with the master plan for the town. I kept my promise, Randy.
Any thoughts, any questions?
I know at our last meeting, we had discussed a drainage issue on the northeast side in between the 5 and the 3. Yeah, right in that area.
Yes.
Has that been taken into account, and how are you going to mitigate that drainage issue?
I swim with that guy on a regular basis, so I've had that foremost in my mind as we've gone through this, and have talked to the engineer. Jeff, can you hear us? Jeff?
I can, yes, sir.
All right, Jeff,
I'm on.
as you know, this has been a pet peeve of mine. Can you address that so the commissioner can understand how we're dealing with the water issue on the right, left hand, or the
Northeast corner.
northeast corner?
I don't think he
of
can
the
see
town?
what you're pointing at.
Right here.
No, I mean on the.
The cameras now don't, yeah.
North of Glassway.
Yeah, well, he knows, because we've had this. It's been a concern.
Yes, and I've had some additional conversations with Dave Ager on this as we're kind of shooting back and forth of what that drainage issue may be, and hopefully I don't belabor this. The existing condition out there, for the most part, and it's hard to evaluate this. Is easily without being out there in a heavy rainstorm and just watching what happens. But there are several culverts or head walls on the east side of the Willard property, which collect the existing drainage as it goes off-site. Now, whether all 100% of the Willard property is what we're talking about gets into those head walls, I'm not exactly sure. But what we are doing is taking the majority of that Willard property now, with some minor areas, plus off-site water, which is drainage water, which is coming from the north and to the west of the property, putting it underground for the 1 in 10 year storms, and it gets diverted all the way to the pond that's in that neighborhood back there off of Glass. And my conversations with Dave Ager when we were talking about this was, I'm not sure what exactly is causing that drainage problem. It could be just a low-lying area that during heavy rainstorms collects water that may not be caused by the Willard property. And I'm not trying to push off this idea that we're not trying to help solve it. But even though we could take 100% of the Willard property water during what we're required to do, which is the 1 in 10 year really the 1 year storm for water quality, plus the overflow of 10-year storm, and put it underground and direct it all the way to the stormwater pond. That problem still may be there, and it's off. It may be an off-site issue that we may not be able to easily deal with from the development itself. But I think what Jim Clifford would like me to address more so is the fact that we're not making that situation any worse than what it is today, and it probably making it better at least from a 1 in 10 year storm standpoint, because that's the requirement by the county that we're actually controlling to actually get it down to the stormwater management pond downstream.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, my concern was, if you could mitigate any of those issues, that would be
Right.
great, but my biggest concern was not to set the grade in such a way that you are
Right.
now overly flooding the neighbors along that backside, because it's already a known issue.
But Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but the state requirements on stormwater, the plan that you've created, it all is addressing the stormwater that's on the Willard property, which may have been causing the problem down in that corner when it was just a farm field. But with all of the water retention and all the different devices that are being used, you're going to capture that water on the Willard site and control it so that it does not exacerbate what otherwise might be a problem regardless of the Willard property. Does that sound right?
That's the intention. And in more layman terms, for simplistic purposes, we're required by the state, which Montgomery County follows, and of course Poolesville allows the county to oversee, is we're to control the water quality. In other words, we clean the water, and then what they've realized is that the most erosive storm is that 1 in 2 year storm, which is being controlled by the water quality that we're doing, the infiltration or filtration type of facilities that take the first flush of water and clean it. But we're also, by the county requirements, not allowed to make any situation worse downstream. And I'm sure some of you already know that the first process when we go through the county is we have to notify all those downstream homeowners that we are doing this project before we can, at the time we're submitting the stormwater to the county, and they are allowed to give input. Do they have downstream problems? The county does take that into account, and how the development of the new site can help either mitigate or not make those situations any worse.
Thank you very much for that answer. I have one more question. It's 2 parts, actually. So you have not gotten to the part where you are soliciting builders, but do you think that you will be soliciting a single builder, or will you be looking at multiple builders within the project?
I'll try to take that. I think this is a small enough project that most builders are going to want to control the whole thing. We have had discussions in the past with builders several years ago that were willing and wanting to split it. If that is still an opportunity, I think it's one that we would prefer. We'd like to see a really diverse, creative style of housing there where each builder would bring their own product. But it's a matter of, we got to get buy-in, first of all, from these builders. What we're presenting them, they're not used to having somebody present them the way it's going to be. We're going to be presenting it to them the way it's going to be, and they're going to have to mold themselves to fit the project. If they're going to have to spend a lot of money on architecture and a lot of money on design to meet our needs, they may not be too generous about wanting to share the project, but they might. So we're certainly, if that's a sensitivity of the town, to try to get as much of a mix as possible, that might be one way to do it, and we're certainly willing to enter into discussions with builders that would provide that kind of diversity.
Actually, that leads into my next question quite nicely. So I appreciate that by having multiple builders, you end up with competitive, and you tend to get a better product out of the end. My concern is that in many of the new additions that I've seen go up all over the place, you have no limit to architectural styles, and so there will be like 14 different distinct, whether it be French or Tudor or Dutch roof lines or the farmhouse. I have seen Craftsman. All of these are in one neighborhood that I currently, have driven by quite often. And so my concern is that what sort of restrictions are you going to put on the architectural design to ensure that the homes are homogeneous, complementary,
Sure.
that it retains its value? Because, like you said, this is a legacy project.
Right.
If
can
you
answer
have
that.
eclectic neighborhoods, they don't tend to retain their value the way as
Right.
homogeneous neighborhoods do. So can you
Right.
speak to that and
Absolutely.
your plans for
Absolutely.
limiting the architecture?
Yeah, there's two methods to do that, and both of them are in place. We've sent to Wade already our declaration of intent for building restrictions. It sets up an architectural control committee. The architectural control committee, in this case, will include the Willards as well as potential builder. We have to wait and see how creative they are. So the architectural control committee is an important part of that. But more importantly, and before that, when you negotiate a contract with a builder, you have the ability at that time to create an approval process, which is what we intend to do. We're going to be providing them, to their horror, a building materials set of restrictions. It's something we shared with the town years ago. In fact, when you guys were doing your overlay zone, we had already shared with you all the kind of restrictions we'd like to see come in as far as architectural roofs, heavy roofs, real windows, real doors, not artificial ones with these pasty things on them, real porches, not faux porches. So all of that is already going to be hardwired into the contract. The last builder we had, that was actually an exhibit in the contract. So first of all, it begins at the contract, and that's where we have the most control, and that's where we'll exercise that control. And then after that, it becomes the architectural control committee. Most builders have enough sense to realize they want their product approved by the architectural control committee, which in this case would be pretty much just the Willards early on, before they want to go any further with the contract. So they usually will get that approval process as part of the negotiations in the study period. So we'll be doing that. What I've heard, and I was an English major, not an architect, but I've heard craftsman style, farm style, cottage, Cape Cod type of style, because these are smaller homes, there's not a lot of, you can't get too fancy, but nonetheless, you can do something very nice. So that's, I think, they're going to be the sweet spot. That's going to be where this project will lay out.
Yeah, I just a comment to that. I have to agree. I think those styles that you mentioned, all
Yeah.
of those from like 1920s through the mid 1950s, those sort of architectural styles that came out during that period are probably best suited towards these smaller square footages.
Billy and I went over and walked Washington Grove and looked at the house styles of Washington Grove and what they did in those days It was a camp meeting to begin with for people coming out of Washington DC, and they literally were putting up tents and all. But that kind of transitioned into actual housing, and the cottage concept that was sort of started by the tenning of these residences was carried over into the architecture. It's a really nice product, very old, but it's kind of the feel that we would like to see come to this particular subdivision.
Jim, when you were here, I don't know how long ago at this point, but you had like, I think it was 4 examples of homes that you would like to see over
Yeah.
there, and they were all very charming looking, and I really
Yes.
liked them. Is that still kind of what you guys have in mind?
Absolutely.
I think, I think, were you here when they, yeah.
If you remember, we had these books, and I meant to bring them tonight, but I know you had all seen them, about pocket communities and smaller communities. And the styles in those books are really excellent. They're really charming. And that's sort of what we were looking for. And when we've met, Billy and I have met with the builders in the old, early on when we were studying this whole thing. Not many of them had that product, but they were all willing to try, which is one of the reasons I'm a little worried that the cost of trying, of creating new architecture that they haven't been doing may make them want to control these 62 units, but maybe not. But anyhow, yes, that's the style we were looking for, and that's what we'll be talking to them about.
Also, one note for anybody watching at home that probably can't see the display you have here. That information is all, or a lot of it is linked on the at the Agenda Center. So if you go there, you can click on the plan and see it for yourself.
Yeah.
The Agenda Center on the town website?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a few questions. So in the dedicated park space over on the bottom left of the corner here,
We call it Willard Commons?
Yes.
Yeah.
here, we had talked about potentially having that be a green parking lot, somewhere that could be used for that, overflow parking. Will the landscaping that's being proposed there, will that impact that? Because that looks like it's going to potentially become an issue.
I don't know where specifically. I mean, we've kept this clear.
Right, will the roadway in, is that impacted at all?
Well, that's access is necessary, of course, to go
Right.
into the parking if they're going to be overflow. But, that's
Yeah, I
green,
thought-
those are called green, yeah, he can explain the green roadway concept.
I thought where your number 7 was going to be like the green parking lot.
I thought
so, too.
That's option 2, yes.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's-
yes. And we anticipate his comments, so.
I made the same comment when I saw
We
it.
have more information in PowerPoint, unfortunately. But one of the options, this is that area you were just talking about.
Mhm.
And the green parking would be in here, and there's 14 spaces, you can send, you can send you a plan on how that would work. In addition, you could add parking here, but this is an alternative of the landscaping, that instead of wrapping around and screening this property here, it could be broken into 2 areas. One is an extension of the conservation, conservatory, area here. It could be, they're all gonna be native plants, so this could be part of that. And then this could be just a simple screen, and then it maintains the visual openness to the house. So that's an alternative that we're more than willing to do.
Let me claw back a minute. That was open space just a few weeks ago. And that's where I had envisioned, based on option 2 that we all voted on, that's where the parking, the green parking would be. When the forestation issue came up with John as to what parts didn't qualify, Dave was forced to put trees in that area. It's not consistent with what we had promised or asked for. We wanted an open view. So I've asked Dave to come up with some alternatives.
Which is that plan on the left?
Which
That's
this,
the alternative on the left.
this is it here?
Yes,
Okay, but you've still got trees here.
yes.
Okay. All right, well, we need to make, oh, I see, yes, because of the parking could still fit in here. He showed me a plan on how the parking would still work here, but.
About how
I
many
just-
spaces is that?
There's about 20 spaces that can fit in that area.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
On the north side, without crossing the multi-use trail, which, that's gonna cut through. If you put parking on both sides, you're gonna cross it.
Right.
So the way we did this, the multi-use trail is on the south side, the extension of the green street or green parking, will be on the north side. And if you single load that, you can get about 14 spaces. And that's,
But it's really two parts. It's not just the parking, but I really felt the visibility of the John Poole House, which is blocked now and difficult to, you got to go find it. I was really hoping this plan would really enhance that street view. So we have to be careful when we start planning things there that we don't block that.
Near Fisher Avenue, you mean? The
What's that?
plant's near Fisher Avenue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Maybe I need a little bit more direction on that. But what's the multi-use path going to be made out of? Is that going to be concrete
my understanding
potentially?
it's asphalt.
Asphalt? Okay. So when you come in, if those are going to be used as green parking spaces, how is that going to work? Where does that come in at? Does it come in
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
road there and then turn left prior to the multi-use path?
This stub road right here,
So it would still have, oh,
parallel to the multi-use path,
so it would be
and then the
on
parking
that side.
will be off of that, on the side.
I was thinking it was on the other side.
Cement.
The sidewalks are
Okay.
concrete, yeah.
So the majority of that, if you're walking from Wayland Commons to the John Poole House, the majority is going to be on cement sidewalk until you get to the very end, it looks like, and then that's going to be an asphalt path.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I have another question, kind of following up to Lexi's question. I just wanted to check real quick because from what I remember, the home that was having the most drainage issues abuts to properties 28 and 29 on the map. And on there, it looks like there's really no trees there. They're all for the properties above that, like near 30 and stuff.
You're referring to this area.
Yes, because the property that abuts is the one that is consistently talking about it. And on the plan, yeah, it looks like there's not really a lot there to mitigate. It looks like there's a lot of housing and asphalt and not really any trees planned there.
But is this area you're concerned about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's right out back here, and
Explain
when
the-
there's a heavy rain, like, you could actually take a canoe through there. It's like,
Wow.
it's a lot of water.
water there now.
Yeah, and it's like a current, and then it dumps into Elizabeth Oman's backyard.
Right.
And it's like, almost like a pond when it rains a lot.
The intention of this plan is that the water coming off the Willard property will now be captured and rechanneled and will not be part of the Ullman's property problem. But all we're saying, yeah, but we're saying is we don't necessarily understand if it's coming from anywhere else.
Right.
But, yeah, a couple of points. It's layers of improvements here. The first thing is, currently there's water coming off-site across this property to this area.
Okay.
That water's going to be captured and diverted 10-year storm Sarah was talking about. That's number one. Number two, there's 40-plus environmentally sensitive design stormwater facilities within the site. Each one of those is connected to the storm drain system. So the water within 1/3 to 1/2 acre drainage areas throughout the site will be captured. The 1-year storm will be treated. The 10-year storm will run through the pipe. That's number two. Number three, this road network, this road here is now a capture device for that area. So you've had 1, 2, 3 actually layers of roads that are going to be breaking that water down into smaller areas. And then finally, grading in this area. There's a grading plan that was attached to the preliminary plan. That grading has been, and those home sites are up in the air now. So that'll diminish the amount of water that will go off-site. And then finally, there is an ESB site here to treat the backs of these two homes. So here, there's an ESB site here to treat the sidewalks and the side area of this home. So there's two that are immediately adjacent to that area.
Are these pervious sidewalks, like the surfaces you're gonna be using?
The current, no, all the sidewalks proposed to be concrete.
Okay.
This is my last question. So originally, when we looked at the previous plan, there was a home that was right to the left of home number 55, which would have pretty much been very close to the John Poole house. So almost near your number one. Yeah, I know that it moved. But when that moved, it took some of the trees that were coming down that way They were kind of where number 47 is now, because 47 wasn't there. It used to be across the street. And removed those. That is, I believe, very close to where the shed is at the John Poole house, and is it there?
Shed's down
What?
here.
No, the shed's
Oh, is it further up?
Yeah, or down.
Is there a reason that there are no trees there between, for that tiny bit of the end of the walking path there?
Well, this was a kind of response to the comments of the staff. The width of this area needs to be wide enough for us to get credit for forestation for that area. So we moved those trees. Doesn't mean trees couldn't be placed there, we just wouldn't get credit for them in the context of the forest conservation. So we moved them as a result of staff comments.
Okay,
thank
you.
You'd like to see trees in that strip, is what you're saying?
I would. Thank you.
Isn't there a tree line there now?
Yeah, offsite, yeah.
Yeah.
On the adjacent property. Yeah, we thought that a combination would be an extension, but that's technically not creditable.
What is the lighting situation for the footpath behind the homes?
Can you point out what you? what
Well,
you-
I'm just curious. You
got
have
the natural path around.
yeah, the path that you have around
You think
the
it was?
yes, this what is going to be the lighting situation?
At night it'll be dark.
That's
Yeah, I don't,
it's a concern.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is it though? I mean, do you really want to add lights to a,
We don't have lights in.
It's worse conservation, so
No, so
Yeah.
typically, yes, none of our trails, they're all closed at dusk, same with the parks, and so there's no lighting in any of the trails.
right. I know that there's no lighting in any of the trails and that they close at dusk, but we don't have any trails that like are so centrally located like this, right? Like this is going to be used all the time.
We have a trail that connects the pool to Elizabeth Light.
That's one, Stevens
and-
Park, all behind the houses, behind Collier Circle Pond, those houses,
Well-
behind the wastewater plant. I
Okay.
mean, no, there's several trails that.
There's
they
several
don't
trails.
like
I know they don't have lights.
The-
I was just
The better
curious if there
choice
was-
would be the sidewalk once it gets dark, because those will have light. And
I was
they'll-
just
they'll
curious
accomplish
if there
the
was a
same thing.
lighting plan for that area.
No.
Okay.
So I will say overall, this is a good looking plan. I think I said this before last time you were here. To me, it still feels a little bit like everything's kind of crammed into a small area. Like there's a lot in there. But overall, I do like the plan. It feels a little tight to me, but
Yeah.
I look at these houses and they look like they're you could like high five your neighbor almost. It feels like
Yeah.
like a little more breathing room would be nice.
Well, it really is a natural function of trying to create this kind of a community. It's really an urban product, not a country product. I think the other thing that we have to struggle with, and we've talked about this before, is that this is a very expensive development to create. Most builders would tell you it's too expensive per lot to create this unique community. We like it, and so we'd like to hang in there with it. But how many units? 3 or 4 units either way won't much matter to the optics or the use of the property, but has significant to the balance sheet as far as being able to spread the cost of this kind of a community across the lots. The more lots, the easier it is to do. We really want to hold on to this concept, and affordability is going to be an issue. But I think you're going to like it when you see it. But I understand where you're coming from. It's not easy to understand houses this small and together.
If I could just add one other comment.
Yeah, please.
It's a little different also from other developments that you might see, because one, there's a higher percentage of open space, and there's a higher percentage of more landscaping, more trees per lot than you would see on other communities. So those things help to soften the more smaller lots and that sort of thing.
Well, I'd love to see some 3D renderings, like to try to make me feel warm and fuzzy.
Okay.
And, you know, I was really excited about the 4 different types of homes you all proposed before. I'm excited to see, I know you need to get a builder for that, but I'm excited to see what, you know, these little cottages are gonna look like. But yeah, I mean, that's my big comment, is that, you know, I understand you have constraints too, but it does feel a little bit crowded to me.
If it's any relief at all, other than moving the houses around a little bit, as you know, the Willard house, a lot of people call it Aunt Tattie's house, is still there, and it's going to be held by the family. We've asked the view shed to the Willard house to be protected, so that's being done in a number of different ways. One of them, which is that we're creating building restriction lines down here on these 2 lots that are right off of Fisher Avenue, so they can't build on the back of their lots and block the Willard house. That viewscape is going to be kept open. Over here, you all had suggested a soft, sort of a soft corner on Fife and Fisher. So when we didn't need it for stormwater, they've converted that into a buffer, a green buffer, so to give it a softer corner. These lots and things, both internally and externally, I think will not make you feel like you're looking at a 5 pounds of nails in a 3-pound bag. I think it's really a lot of things there that are going to soften the density, and the density, as I suggested, is something that's necessary.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, following up on my comment about it, you know, feeling crowded, like it does, in addition to that, the positive side is it does look like it's like, you know, one of the more unique, well thought out things we have here in Poolesville. I mean, like, I do appreciate that. You know, I can tell you spent a lot of time like trying to like get this right, and I appreciate that. And
Thank you.
yeah, so thank you for that.
I will just, a comment on yours is like, when you look at this and you think 62 houses in that space, it seems like a lot. But looking at the way they have this plan with the short runs, 3 houses, 2 houses, 5 houses, and the way it's broken up like that, it won't feel like Clarksburg, for lack of a better description. This does not give Clarksburg vibes even from the plat.
That's good. I don't love the
Think about most towns in Maryland with historical downtowns. Houses are right
Yeah.
6 inches together.
One of the things we did here that we picked up from you all is that this is a series of mews. It's not linear streets, and it's not, you're not looking at square blocks.
Yep.
We've got this optic has gotten, you know, very complex and very interesting, and your eye's not drawn to a long line of houses, and, you know, that it's really broken up, as you were suggesting. So I think you're gonna like it when you see it.
Yeah, from a selling standpoint, you know, I think you'd be well served to bring in the original plan, because you know it was very like, you know, grid and like you know,
Yeah, start
It
with
was
the
the
original
worst of
number and
everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
It really was.
We should talk about the street. So is there enough like you know the glassway entrance? I mean, is there enough in ways to get egresses and ingresses?
Sure. We're agnostic on how you want to handle this aspect. But what we're proposing in the plan, one is a wide enough dedication so that a road can be built that will connect existing glassway to what we're calling Street D, so our street names are approved. In lieu of that, if it's decided that you don't want a physical connection, a road connection, vehicular connection, we're proposing to build a sidewalk in that area. So it would be a sidewalk within a 40-foot area.
Pedestrian
Plus-
connectivity.
Yeah, pedestrian connection, and that would have, you know, green space on both sides of it. So it's not only this, you have all the green space on both sides of this.
So off the top of my head, I don't envision people that are living in this new development using Glassway to, you know, they would probably just, you know, go right out to Fisher and
Right.
go where they're going. So to me, like a walking path seems like a sidewalk seems like it makes more sense, but I'd love to hear what everybody else thinks.
We were asked to make it as miserable as possible for somebody to want to cut through.
Right.
And if you look at this, you're going to need a map, a GPS to get through
Yeah.
as a cut through.
It just, it, without the vehicular access, to me, it cuts it off from the rest of that community back there. And whether you need it to access and leave town, or if you want to go visit friends in that other neighborhood, it just seems awkward to have that opportunity and not connect it. I think to the point that you made, Martin, it's not a very attractive cut through which I think would alleviate the concerns of people living in that area.
Right.
That it's not gonna increase traffic, but it just gives freer access throughout the town. I'm in favor of it.
I also think looking at this, still you basically have two entries, an entry and an exit, pretty much off Fisher currently. I mean, I know that you have one off of Fife, but Fife only goes to Fisher. So potentially having something else, at least the option for something else.
They're
Makes
living, that community is gonna be right across from Whalen Commons, which is very busy with pedestrian traffic on weekends in the summer. You know, if they wanna leave town, you know, like I said, it's not a very viable option for commuters or something like that, but when things are happening in town, you wanna avoid that pedestrian traffic, which I think we should be in favor of reducing vehicular traffic when we have the high pedestrian traffic.
I think I'm envisioning that the way that we're gonna have to work with, you know, obviously we're gonna work with them for the streetscape for the Fisher portion. I wonder if it doesn't make sense to try to get some input on, Fife Road here, you know, like, traffic calming, things like that, you know, that, because this could become like, you know, people going up and down here really fast, you know, coming in and out.
Fife Road
No,
doesn't
Fife,
go anywhere.
it's not going to connect.
Fife Road ends right here.
Let me show you.
This doesn't reach Fife.
Okay, I get, but I'm saying like people turning into like, Street C,
Oh.
you know, just that little section there, like, you know, you could have, you know, you have all these, everyone on the commons and like, you know, these events going on and everything, like, so that even that short little stretch, you know, you might consider traffic calming.
It looks like
Measures.
about 150 feet to me, Martin. I don't know if you need traffic calming 150 feet.
Yeah, there's too many turns.
As far as connectivity, I want to hear what you guys are saying first, but we said from the very start of this plan, there needs to be some type of access to go through.
Yes.
For emergency, for pools of the day, for whatever.
Yeah.
Power line comes down here, people can be trapped in their homes.
Yeah.
It's a safety thing.
I would like to see
Remember, that
the
option's
community.
still there too. Did you guys can put a gate there and open
Yeah.
it for events or close it? It's up to you all.
One thing I don't like, of all the neighborhoods in town, I don't like how Tama in the Woods and Brightwell only has that one entrance to Jerusalem. I always think that should have been connected to the existing Tama, to the first Tama. I like how most of our developments interconnect. Westmont interconnects with Seneca Chase. Hunter's Run interconnects with Westerly, so that there's no, you don't have just little pockets of neighborhoods. So, like what Brian's saying, if you live in the back of this Willard development and you want to visit a friend over on Selby Avenue or Selby, whatever, Selby Way, you have to come out, go to Fisher, go down to Cattail, come back and around. Plus, for safety reasons, like I said, for events, pools all day, those folks are not going to be able to get out of their neighborhood unless they can exit out through Glassway. I'm strongly think we need to keep that a road and have people be able to exit on Fisher and or through.
Now, this exact conversation took place in the early 90s when, I think it's called Loria Manor, which is General Custer at the top of Spurrier,
Yeah,
behind the high school. That was put into place, and they argued there was a big fight. They didn't want to put Old Spurrier connected through to New Spurrier because it's become a raceway. Can you even imagine it not going through now?
yeah.
I mean, right. Same thing.
Yeah. I'm interested in what you're talking about, that section though, to see what kind of improvements that looks like, right? To
I
see
mean,
if it,
it just seems like, you know, even if you got people going 30 miles an hour in for that little short stretch, like when there's a lot of pedestrian traffic moving around, you know, maybe it's speed bumps, maybe it's like, I don't know, just something to think about.
Just, I'm clear on it. Where are you talking about?
but between there and Fisher.
Yeah. And then turning, yeah, exactly, that little stretch right there. Because you're gonna have people at your little tot lot, you're gonna have people in the commons, it's just, you know, it's not, I'm saying it's any kind of a deal breaker, I'm just saying like it might speed bumps or something might be appropriate, just to like make sure people are going like 15 miles an hour and not like 30 or 35 or whatever.
Well, that's your road, so you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
No, this is more directed to Wade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but with that same section, I'm interested to see the improvement in the sidewalk and what that all is gonna look like
Right.
leading up to that corner.
Right.
So. Any other questions or comments? What's on our plate here? Steve, do you have something you want to bring up?
I wanted to speak to this, if this would be the opportune time.
Yes.
I need to
We don't
move,
have any more questions for Jim and
We don't, at the moment, we can go back to them if we do. Yeah,
You want me to just stay here?
it's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
I got questions for you.
Oh, good.
You got my information up there, do I need to say it on tape?
You say it on tape, please.
Steve Bolter, 19707 Selby Avenue. I don't want to start off with a negative point, but the last thing you guys were just talking about, I live right across the street there. And I've been following
Can you
this
show me where you're talking about?
Glass Way.
Hey, Steve, I know what you're going to say. I see your wife use Brightwell Crossing to come to church all the time. So she enjoys the accessibility of connecting neighborhoods.
Glass Way, 2004.
So you're right there.
In that conversation.
Okay, got it.
And like I said, this is not negative, this is comments,
Yeah.
feedback, information. I've lived here 28 years. We all choose our neighborhoods for a million different reasons. We chose that neighborhood because we wanted to be right downtown, and it was a private little circle. To the point of emergency access, that was discussed in this room before it was built. For 15 years, Tama only had one entrance, and there was always the concern of fire and medical. You know, it is what it is. So having two entrances is always a bonus. There are currently two entrances to this current neighborhood, and it was 3 years ago, I went back through all my notes of, 2016 when this kind of started, all the way up to right
I
now,
remember.
6 years later. And it was kind of decided, although nothing's been decided, but I wanted to reiterate that we understand that it makes perfect sense that the road be there for Poolsville Day, for emergencies. That's a legal, opportune necessity. As far as Poolsville's only 3 miles wide in every possible direction you go to, we've driven a mile to go to church every year of our lives. To drive over, to walk to Wayland's or Dollar General, whatever. So, not to refute you, but I mean, as far as, if I had a friend that lived 4 blocks, 4 houses away, and it was a mile drive, I could walk it, bike it, or even drive the mile. But that's really what I wanted to talk about. Anyway, I'm opposed to that being an open road. It can be constructed for 3 valid reasons, but it's not built to serve this new concept. Questions for you, just information. I too remember the houses that were promoted, maybe conceptually through Miller or whatever, and when I
Well,
glanced.
not through Miller. Nothing that Miller had on the board is what we're talking about.
Okay, and I don't want to throw that out erroneously, but in the smaller houses that are being built today, in the cluster type of neighborhoods where everything is smaller, and I remember in one of your, somewhere in the email, it said something like they would be smaller for seniors, starters.
Right.
And I guess, well, just to help us all focus, what kind of square footage are the houses think they might be?
But we have talked of housing range between 1,200 and 2,000 square feet. We were going between 1,200 and 1,800 square feet, but it seems that everybody we talked to pushed us for that extra 200 square feet. We're not going to have a lot of basements because of the rock. There might be opportunities for basements. I remember Jerry said that he felt that basements were critical to small houses because of storage. But we're not going to have a lot of options. There might be some areas. So I would tell you that we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 2,000 square feet.
And I know, right now, it's all preliminary, a lot
Yeah.
of conceptual,
Right.
but you just used the key word in my conversation, my thought, Ben. The thing I want to share, what I keep seeing in the smaller neighborhoods that are being built today, is that you're going to build something that's creative, and I do want to commend all the whole team and all the people that have been involved. There's been a lot of creativity and give and take, and plus the desire for legacy. We all appreciate that beyond words. But nobody gets to choose who's going to buy these houses. There's always a buyer for everything. As you said, it'll be bought up immediately. But even in a small house that's got 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, 1 or 2 baths, it is what it is. But I don't see ever enough room for your seasonal decorations, kids' toys, your trash cans. Where do you put the stuff like when even you have your first baby and you get them that little Power Wheel wagon? It's got to go somewhere.
Sidewalks.
And how many people have, exactly, how many people have their hobbies like motorcycles that they don't want to leave outside?
We're gonna ban motorcycles. We had a
Exactly.
bad experience.
So
with
you gotta go, you gotta
Commissioner.
go. Right. Anyway, the point is, there's not enough storage in houses these days. And before I go further with that is, a lot of these houses, I couldn't really tell from this drawing, and of course, there's still 62 houses here. I remember the old drawing, and it showed, like, especially on these little mews over by 1 and 7, or we used to be 1 and 6, where you've got, aren't these like little one-car garages? Some of them are two-car garages, but a lot of them are one-car garages.
To be determined,
To be determined, okay.
yeah.
So, but my point is, in smaller garages these days, you can't even hardly put a minivan in there.
Right.
And of course, if you have any shelving or anything around it, it's not a garage anymore at all.
Yeah.
And so the question I ask you all, as you submit ideas to the planning commission, is when you count how many and this is one of my questions, how many parking spaces do you say, when you would fill out one of your reports, how many parking spaces are included in this neighborhood?
Two and a half spaces per home.
That's a good answer, and I remember kind of that from 4 years ago. Is one of those spaces that you're counting the garage?
Yes.
That's my problem. So immediately, when you build this neighborhood and nobody uses their garage, and it's not your fault, it's theirs, you really have 1.5 spaces per house.
Mhm.
And in a two-car family, you're already messed up. That's kind of the point I want to share, and I could talk for hours, but we'll be
Yeah.
concise.
And look, there's plenty of ways to create storage space if that's an issue for.
Well, that was one of my
homeowners in
questions
the
for
area.
you all, too. I looked on the webpage today when it comes to shed permits and stuff like that, and in a lot that's only 4,000 square feet or whatever, are there restrictions as to some lots may not be able to even build a shed if the person wanted to?
Then, yeah, well, you can answer
Yes,
that.
that could be a possibility depending on lot coverage and size of the house, which we just talked about tonight, so yeah, yes.
And so the whole purpose of tonight is just to put thoughts out there so that nothing's gonna be decided, but it's just, you know, I looked at the webpage today for planning and permits and stuff like that, and I couldn't find any of the requirements or things that were permitted or not permitted, and size of
Right.
lot or
These are more
setbacks.
practical issues, and they're valid issues.
Yep.
And,
And that's all I really want to get across without having to talk too long,
Yeah.
is one, I usually see people, because all people, they don't have to be tons of storage,
Right.
but they're all gonna have trash cans, grills, toys, bicycles, lawn equipment, tools,
I
hobbies.
thought that's what parents were for.
Well, I'm
My
talking
kids-
about the parents
my
right
kids
now,
have used-
hobbies.
Well, my kids use me as a storage. That's what I thought our
It'd be a
job
good
was.
business opportunity for somebody to take a little parcel of land and open up a storage
storage,
facility in this town.
Well, we
You
have,
know?
we've seen that.
Mr. Catlin. Yeah, but that, and the other point you just made too is, street parking would be that, well, I kind of went through with a fine tooth comb before, and I have a problem with I drive a school bus, and in neighborhoods where they build a street this wide, and then the parking place comes out halfway into the lane because they didn't really make it as wide as 3 cars wide. And I know that's in engineering.
He's got an answer.
Our parking spaces, on-street parking spaces, are supposed to be 8 feet wide.
Well, in the
In addition
Kentlands,
To the 20-foot drive.
And
in
remember,
in addition, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm
I'm
not
just
I'm
saying
not here
it's
to argue.
wider than probably what you were describing.
most of these are around the circles that have the parking, they're all indented, you know, so they're not sitting out on the.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
But, and that was kind of what I wanted to just, once again, just a voice.
Yep.
I just have frustration in real life when you have a 2-lane road and then an engineer says, we can make a parking place and half of it's in one of the lanes.
We're not doing
That's a
Hey,
blessing.
John Strong, is there other like protocols in place to make sure that doesn't happen?
Correct.
Okay, good.
In Ireland.
Because that's a
we call
great
that
point,
charming.
Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's like just a way to make, capitalize. I mean, you take away 3 feet from a lot of miles of road, you can build more houses. And I agree with the point you made too. This is not like what they're doing in Frederick, Clarksburg, Urbana. I mean, those are multi-million people just going to town. I want you all to be able successful. We want this to be a reality. But my point is just deliveries. We all have FedEx, we have UPS, we have the post office, to be able to ride and drive. But then this isn't a thoroughfare, there's no school at the end of the road.
Right.
That sort of thing. But I,
That'll be an issue for fire and rescue too, right? They're gonna,
Yes,
yeah, so we're,
will be all over.
yeah, okay.
y'all bet up, this is up in Frederick. This is, now, of course, these are townhouses, but every single house in this row, I know you guys can't see it, there's 8 houses here. Every one of them has a 2-car garage. None of them are using their garage. There's 2 cars in the driveway of every house, and the entire street is lined with the overflow cars. Take it, blow it up a little bit, stretch
I
it.
believe that.
We turned those builders down.
I would say
that
that
builder down.
probably 80% of the
I
people in
deliver,
town do
in
not use
addition to
their
a school
garage.
bus down in the Kentlands, I also work for the post office and deliver packages in Frederick. And it is a nightmare, the way, and this is, no, we can't control it. These are just real people living their lives.
Yep.
But when they bought this house and moved in there, and maybe now they've had 2 kids, it's just ridiculous. So, I mean, those are my points, is one, how do they count the spaces? They do count the garages, and when the garages don't get used, I kind of wanted to make that point.
Yeah.
Good
We
point.
know what the reality of how people live. We know they're gonna have hobbies. We know they have gear that has to be stored somewhere, seasonal decorations and trash cans and whatever. Garage size depth cannot accommodate storage and a car, so it's gonna be one or the other. And you gave me the chance to talk about Glassway, thank you.
Can
Oh,
you make a garage that's like 1.5 sizes of a car? I'm just curious. Is that something that can be done? I mean, I assume
That's my
so.
garage in Westmont.
I mean, because that's a really good point. I mean, obviously,
it all
I can.
depends on how much room there is in the house to take away from the living room or the,
I'm sure many of us don't use our garages to park in. Many of us use them. We don't use ours. We use ours to store all sorts of outdoor equipment, but not cars.
but then it all depends on how big your land is.
I think
and
good
what-
points. I've got, I think the headline points here are the storage areas and how that interrelates to the parking spaces. I
And
think that's a good thing.
Thank you for that,
And
Bruce.
the roadway for glass and the access in the roadway, which I think we've addressed. Were there any other points?
Well, the only other thing is, and of course, I knew this goes right back to your mathematics. This neighborhood, we've just talked about them taking care of themselves, but think about what we're creating with the overlay and the fact that it is right here in the middle of downtown. Anybody that has 10 people over for a dinner party or a birthday party, or even if there are too many cars, they can't overtake Wayland's Commons and Town Hall parking places. They can't overtake what you're gifting to the town for the pool house, and
They
of course.
can or cannot?
Cannot. I mean, the whole idea
Why
of
can't
that.
they?
If, for their personal overflow parking.
Why not?
Forgive my words, that's just a phraseology.
Oh.
They shouldn't.
Well,
I
don't know
think
that
we're saying the exact opposite. I think these are.
Well, I was gonna ask that question earlier, when they called it overflow parking, or I was gonna say, what is green space parking? I didn't understand that phrase.
Well, that's just the composite, or the appearance is to be a lawn, but it's supposed to have,
Reinforced turf.
reinforcement so that it can be easily parked on.
Kind of like this pervious idea. Well, earlier I remember when all the discussions about creating this opportunity was to open up the pool house a little bit as a tourist attraction, because it is hard to find and there's no real place for anybody to park right up there.
Right.
Those 14 spaces I kind of thought would be partially used for
It
that
will-
opportunity.
It will be, but as you know, the John Pool House isn't a 24-hour
No.
kind of scenario. If somebody's having a party at 7 o'clock at night and they need overflow parking, my guess is that you got an empty lot sitting there.
And that point's well taken, that temporary. But a lot of people that might have to park their second car and get in the habit
Oh,
of doing
yeah, I
that.
don't think that, I think that's an enforcement issue, perhaps it ought to be discussed, but you're right.
Well,
It
and it's
needs
hard
to
to
be-
enforce something like that. I mean,
Well, no, it's done all the time. You know, if you mark tires, there's a lot of ways to do it. It's not the kind of thing we want to do in Poolsville, but it's not a problem until it's a problem. And if it is a problem, at some point, there's solutions to that.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'm intrigued with the storage concept, and I was interested in Commissioner Huber's maybe experience with that, but somebody's got to have an answer for this. This kind of a project, whether it's a condo or a townhouse or something, it's got to have a similar problem, and maybe there's an answer that we can just find, and it's a real problem. It's something we ought to think about.
I have lots of ideas. We could chat another time.
Okay, good.
And
On that particular issue, I have lots of thoughts.
Okay, good.
well, and of course, I understood what you were saying, 3 or 4 spaces could make the world a difference, and like say my phraseology earlier, but it was kind of like, one of the suggestions is, heaven forbid, you might choose to give up 3 or 4 or 5 spaces, which isn't even half an acre, and you wonder how many parking spaces does a half acre really create if that's only 14 up there.
Remember, these are small houses. So
Yeah.
how big is the party going to be?
Well, no, that's not the point.
Yeah.
What I was making was, if lots are only 4,000 feet, 4 lots, which is enough to, like, say, make or break your deal, which I do kind of understand, but that's only 16,000 square feet, which is a third of an acre. And you wonder even how many parking spaces that would create. My suggestion was, even when you all did come from 95 down to 65, that was quite a concession, I understand. But like Martin just said a moment ago,
62.
62.
Don't want
I
to
would
get into
hate,
any more.
I would hate for you to have to suggest, but because they right smack in the middle of town, the one point I tried to make earlier that I do want everybody to hear, there is no place to park right here in the middle of town. You can't park you shouldn't park in a business parking lot where they're open for business.
Right.
On a semi-permanent basis. I'm not talking about a birthday party, because overflow, a problem like these pictures, is an everyday occurrence.
I think this is a legitimate concern, and I know that the John Poole House, the people at Historic Medley District are trying to do more evening events, and like, you know, they were starting to do a bunch of them before COVID, and they want to get back into them. You know, so what Steve's saying makes sense to me. I wonder if there's like a way you could build like just 3 small parking lots, like maybe like, you know, like where there could be 5 spaces each or something, just to help out with that kind of thing.
Well, we've put a lot internally, you know, there's these indented areas where there's cars parked on these circles, but the whole intention of this, by the parks people, when we talk to them, is this would be a place that the way it's laid out, that additional parking could be put there, not just for Old Town Day, but for any time, you know, so, I mean, you guys would have to control and decide when you want this used and how you want it used, but that really is a good location to.
The number you're saying, like you're allocating, like what did you say, 2.5 per home?
Yeah.
That includes street parking, I assume.
That's within, I heard it to be within the whole neighborhood, 150 total spaces within counting 60 garages.
Right.
Yeah. But the right-of-ways are wider than just the pavement, you know, so there are places between street trees where we could add space here, interspersed amongst the time. So we can come back with.
We can look at this idea.
I know that nothing's going to be decided tonight, not to cut
No,
you off anyway,
but I do think, you know,
I think
if you
it's
could
better.
integrate like a few more spaces, like, you know, to Steve's point, that would probably be, you know, just to be
I
safe.
just know in the real world, thank you, Martin, I mean, in the real world, even 150 spaces is not really enough for just the 62 people that live there at 2 cars per, no doubt. And that's if they use their garage, which
Right.
I don't see in real life happening.
Would you like to see double-loaded parking on this road?
I'm not gonna make that suggestion. I would rather see you lose some lots personally.
But I mean, we're trying to solve a problem here.
I agree
If the problem is that more parking is needed, we did have a design at one time with double, you know, a single alley, but double-sided parking. That could add maybe, 12 spaces? So
I couldn't see the.
Oh, I'm sorry, in the comments over here.
Yes, we can add spaces in that area.
Yep.
And that could be dedicated to the homeowners association.
Well, I'll leave this up to the planning commission as far as I think, thank you for hearing my point, my opportunity.
Yep.
It's a good point and it's resolvable, so we'll get to work.
I agree.
And I think there'd be a lot more than 12 needed. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Can I ask another question to you, Jim? So I think I heard you say there's going to be an HOA. That's the plan, correct? And would landscaping be part of it? Just talking a little bit about that shed piece, because if you can't have a shed, that's really hard to store lawn equipment around here.
The way we set these HOAs up is typically, there's a special assessment capacity. But more importantly, when each lot is purchased, there's a certain degree of money that's budgeted from each buyer has to put a certain amount of money in right up front, the seed money, and that needs to be there to grow. In this particular case, we've got some private drives that'll be there. The way the declaration of covenants works, if you live on a private drive, you have an additional responsibility to maintain that driveway. If there's 4 or 5 houses feeding off of one driveway, that private drive is maintained through a special assessment created by the homeowners association through a budget process where there's a special assessment to each homeowner to take care of that private drive. I've provided Wade a copy of the way that document looks. The same thing would be true for, but community-wide, for any landscaping, anything that has to be done in the form of lawn care. Those are the things that the HOA will be assessing and budgeting and hiring and maintaining, not the individual property owners.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and that there's a document that Wade has that is a little bit of a generic document. It's exactly a document that I used on the community in Damascus. It's been working very well, and that's what I've provided for this.
Jim, could you speak to, for the people with Sustainable Poolsville, and could you speak to the green initiatives that this project is gonna, you're proposing?
Can you hone that down a little bit when you say the green initiative?
Like,
You're not
like
talking about electric cars.
No. Well, I mean, like, at some point it might be nice to have charging stations in there, but I'm just talking about, like, I guess streetlights would have to be LED, is that right?
Yes, that'll be something we write into the PIA,
Yeah.
the standard.
Wait, I'm sorry, say again?
LED lights in the.
LED lights, like,
Oh,
pervious surfaces, anything like that.
Yeah, I
Just-
think,
Maybe there aren't any, that's fine too.
no,
I'm just-
actually, when you start from the, 30,000-foot level and work your way in, we have minimized the impervious surfaces. So it's that balancing act that the last gentleman brought up. You have to have enough parking, but you don't want too much and that sort of thing, and that keeps the impervious surfaces down. As I said earlier, we have more open space in this plan than you would typically see, so that translates into less impervious as well. More walking trails, you're going to get people out walking and driving less. You're physically close to downtown, so that there will be a tendency for people to bike and walk rather than drive, so that helps on CO2 and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of inferred benefits from that standpoint, and there's we haven't gotten into the architectural details, but that'll be down the road.
Dave, we're meeting all the forestation requirements on site too, right?
Yes.
Correct. So we really have gone as far as we can get with trying to cover those issues.
Board, what are we doing today?
So I think we've provided enough feedback for them to, I think there's a couple items they need to address, and John, staff needs to go through and take a look at the documents that were submitted and review them the rest of the way and have a staff report prepared for the next meeting.
Okay. Sounds good. Anybody have any more questions or comments? Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's always
Thanks a lot.
helpful. Thank
And
you.
always addressing everything we talk about. You guys have been great. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
45 predictions in Jeopardy.
Next on our new business, we have the Donegan property concept plan.
Yeah.
Any, I know.
But now. Yes, I get it tense like that.
We thought it was cold enough, we might get out of here earlier.
There's like a lower, must be like.
Could be your tea.
Don't go to sleep, you might die.
Can you bring me one too?
Yeah. Get a big Afghan.
Wait, is staff report for this or no? Is there a staff report for this property? Yep.
Wasn't a whole lot of detailed information really to
Yep,
review.
yep. That's what I figured, just wanted to check.
Cleared the room.
Don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I know.
Good evening, gentlemen. You're gonna state your name for and who you represent for the,
Hi, my name is John Petrella. I'm a real estate developer, and I am the contract purchaser of this parcel.
So, good evening. Gary Unterberg with Rogers Consulting. We're the land planners and engineers working with John.
all right.
Go ahead, jump right into it and tell them about the property, where it
Yep.
is, and what you're preparing here.
Okay, I had a bunch of notes I wanted to relate that were on more of a personal level, but it seems like you've been here long enough and probably don't want to hear it. So
We're very interested in what you have to say about the property. Is there anything you think is important? We're willing to sit and listen and
well,
pay attention.
I live in Boyd's, Maryland, and I know Poolesville since I've lived there for 15 years. 5 years ago, my son moved to Poolesville and started having kids, and now I spend a lot of time in Poolesville. And this started because I was at Bassett's one night having a few drinks with a friend of mine who's a broker, and she was talking about how there was no grocery store in Poolesville. So after a few beers, I decided there should be. So the next day I sobered up, and we took a look. She represents actually Lidl, who's like one of the smaller niche grocery stores, and she'd done some deals with them in other areas. So we did a little bit of a study and looked for a piece of property, and this site would have been perfect. But when we did the research, Lidl, there's just not enough critical mass of housing, so we couldn't go that direction. At that point, I'd been talking to Gary, and I said, we were looking at that for the retail site, and he said, there's actually something in the zoning ordinance that says that can be residential. And then the mind started wandering. I like Poolesville. So we started looking at the site and, tried to figure out whether we could do a townhouse use there that would be suitable and that would kind of match, with the town as I know it, driving up and down Fisher. And so that's how we came up with the plan. Basically, what we want to do is we want to create like townhouses that front on the roads, that are rear loaded, so that we create a scenario that's kind of like not dissimilar to what's really in the middle of town, where the houses are, front porches, you can sit and enjoy watching the kids walk around. So that's what we ended up with, and that's the sketch that we're proposing. A friend of mine had done the architectural sketch that was part of the package. And we started that with, I just brought one copy of this picture, but maybe pass it around. Because this was this also looks like the house I live in, but this was kind of what I wanted to see from like a street perspective. So, Gary drew up a land plan, and I think maybe now he'd like to describe it for you.
Fantastic.
Sure. I think everyone can hear me okay with going over the boards. And I was telling John in the back, I'm looking at the picture behind you next to the flag here with the porches and the other buildings on Fisher and in the town. Thank you. It's a good comparison. So I've got 3 boards. We'll walk through them and start with the overall concept. John mentioned a little bit about it, and then talk about the specifics of the plan, and then also talk about the architecture a little bit. We are looking to do in design guidelines and controlling the architecture. There is no builder yet, so that's, sounds familiar, but I will sense. And we've talked to Wade, I know John's been on some of the emails, but this is a sketch plan. We're coming to you first. We're looking for ideas, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Hopefully we can get some feedback tonight that this makes sense and that we can continue to go forward. As we get into questions, I may not have all the answers because we haven't done a lot of the the homework yet, particularly some of the engineering, and that's all to come, with the process, working with the town. This aerial photo shows the site. I think you're all familiar with it, with the CVS on the northern part. Fisher Avenue comes up, and then Wooten is the cross street. We've been looking at as you come in, and we've talked, and we're aware that there's a circle plan for the intersection. And so we haven't shown that yet, but we know that's coming. So how we relate to that circle and the how basically you view the site as you drive into Poolsville, this would be one of the key sites that you see first. We are looking to show a small park green space at the corner. And then, as John already mentioned, we're looking to face the buildings, and the buildings would face Wooten and Fisher. And then, particularly with the porch scheme that we're proposing, the porch would be continuous across the frontage of the townhomes. And that would be a key signature item, along with our pocket park green space that we're seeing as a focal point. And we're looking for ideas on that. It's not huge, but we also are looking for ideas if there's a gazebo, a structure, something that makes sense with the architecture. If it's public art, that works, we want that to be a focal point and a signature part of the community. And I'll go to the next one. This is our basic concept again. We have Fisher, Wooten. We have 28 townhouses proposed. We are proposing a larger townhouse. These are all 24 feet wide by 50 foot deep. So they're a significant size. We are looking at 3 stories. And how we'll talk in a moment about architecture and how we work with the code. Or none of the commercial zone talked about 30-foot height, allowing 3 stories. The overlay zone talked about 35-foot height. Those are both options right now, or if, as we develop architecture further, if we need some relief on that height, if 35-foot makes sense or 40-foot makes sense, that's something we're still working on. This details that corner, signature corner, units up close facing Fisher. We do have a 10-foot public utility easement. We're looking to have the porches relatively close to that. So off the right-of-way, there is an existing sidewalk on Fisher, so behind that sidewalk, we would not be too far behind. Again, we want that town feel with the units closer to the road. We have one entrance, which would be to our alley proposed off of Wooten. Again, the units along Wooten has a little bit of curve to it, and right now there's no sidewalk on Wooten, so we'd be adding the sidewalk to Wooten, and then again, the units, a little bit set back because of the curve, but again, the units facing forward and addressing the road. The other thing that we've looked at is the remainder of the property and how it relates to the school, elementary school across the street. Opportunity for another greenway or park that would connect Fisher over to the shopping center. We do not, and the owners did not want to include, there's a larger rectangle piece that's part of that field. That's not included right now, and that's something we're working with.
Sorry to interrupt, but could I ask you to bring that microphone? Apparently nobody online can hear what you're saying. Let me pick it up there.
Oops, does it?
You'll have to repeat everything you said.
Yeah, just start over. No, I'm just kidding.
You can see, let me know if I've said the same things. So where was I? So again, there is some with the CVS with their loading. There's some vegetation that buffers that. I think that's grown up, significantly. That I think we can use as an asset, as a green edge. But we're looking for a greenway that would come through the middle of the site and sight line from the elementary school over to the parking lot for the shopping center. A little bit about the detail for the units. 24 by 50 is our dimension we're working right now. That does not include, and it's a little bit hard to see on here, but we're looking at a wraparound porch that would wrap the corner, come across the whole frontage, and then wrap the other corner, and that would be on every building. And that would be our unifying architectural feature with that porch. We're looking at 2-car garages, and we're also, most of these show a shorter driveway, but we're looking at recessing the garage or tucking the garage under the building So we would have a full 2 spaces in the garage and then a full 2 spaces in the driveway for each unit. So we'd have 4 parking spaces per each unit, and all the parking would be off an alley system. So, and then, yeah, so that's the overall with the layout, and then I think John passed around that photograph that showed the porches, but this black and white drawing shows that concept with the porch on the lower level, and then shows a 3-story townhouse. The roof line is, again, a work in progress. We're showing a taller roof in the center, and then a shorter roof, more that gambrel style, which is on the photograph on the end. And whether that mix makes sense, or the whole row of townhouses is the same roof, that again is a work in progress and something we're exploring. So with that, did I miss anything, John, or?
No, that's where we're at.
Happy to answer questions, see initial reactions.
A couple of quick things that popped in my head. I think the height's going to be a concern. That was a big concern when they built the townhouses across the street from the lot you're looking at. So we're going to have to work through that. But minimizing the impact of height is when you alter the roof line. I think that's going to be working in your favor. It doesn't look so imposing when you have something that's a little bit shorter.
What's our current height for the woods?
Well, it is, for regular townhouses, it's typically 2 stories to the highest living space, but in the commercial area, it is 3 stories. So
Okay.
we need to look at it, we didn't know exactly what the heights were, so
Yeah.
that'll be part of our report coming
Okay.
back.
I remember when we approved, remember they came in for a variance to increase the height?
That was zoned townhouse, not commercial.
Right.
That's the difference.
Different zone.
Okay. But how high are they now?
Yeah.
38?
I forget exactly what it was. I can look it up and let you know.
37, 38. Is it? Yeah.
Are those the ones across the street?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then the other thing for me was the access on the boards on the ground there, off of Wooten. Is that right across the street from the access to the other townhouses there?
Yeah, so we're aligning with one of the driveways
Yeah.
across the street, and we looked at different options. They do have another access point.
Yeah.
Earlier version, we were splitting the two, but
Yeah.
it looked like it made more sense to line it up.
I think it probably does line it up. My preference actually would be a little bit further away from the main intersection with the other entrance. But also you're
Further to the
yes, sir. You also seem to have, looks like you have asphalt within about 10 feet of the existing parking lot. Would it be reasonable to have access off of the parking lot as opposed to off of Wooten?
Yeah, and with the adjacent, was the same property owner. If that's something we can ask, or if that would be feasible or not.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, just give me your thoughts.
I don't think that would be a desirable access for your house coming through the tractor.
Yeah,
I
probably
mean, I
not.
love the Tractor Supply, don't get me wrong.
Right, yeah.
I'm there a couple times a week.
Right.
but I don't think we would like that from a marketing perspective.
And we've had things in the past, like on Poolsville Day and stuff, where we've had issues with the parking lot filling up at Tractor Supply and
Right.
non-patrons parking there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would cause an issue or not, but something to think about.
Yep.
I will say one of the things I particularly like about your initial sketch plan here that I'm not crazy about on the townhouses across the street. I like how your parking is behind, and everything is like I think that's the new way that urban streetscapes are going. Like where like whether it's store frontage or homes are right up against the road, and like the parking. Why would you want to have cars right in front of the road?
Well, I do a lot of development, and Gary has done a lot of development with me. And I've been around long enough to see when the neo-traditional, Andres Duani and his partner came to town, and I actually worked, I guess, early on. Well, we're doing one now called Cabin Branch that Gary designed over in Clarksburg, and it has a very similar street feel. And I think, when that first came to town back in the 80s, I mean, we railed against it, and people didn't accept it. But now, it's, that's That's just the way it works. And I think it's a much more desirable footprint and streetscape.
Agreed.
Conveniently enough, that picture that I'm passing around looks just like the front of my house also. And I spend a lot of time sitting on the front porch. Yeah,
Are you proposing this looks like almost like a tin roof on the porch area?
I think it has to be standing seam metal.
Yeah.
And understand,
Awesome.
this was a concept, like I said, was born at Bassett's in the back. And I've been working through it, and because I like Poolsville, I think that, when the other fellow here said he didn't have a builder yet, I don't have a builder yet, but I deal with all the builders. And I think in this market, considering, there's really nothing, there's no land here, and it's a great place, I think I can bend builders to my will. And that would be my goal walking away from here tonight, is to either, find a builder, that would do what I want them to do, or perhaps do it myself. I'm toying with that idea, and I'm trying to convince my wife that we should live here. She's on the fence. So.
Yeah, I mean, I read somewhere that you're talking about like using like hardy plank or something on the sides, and so it seems like you're going to build a good product.
I think the market accepts that product. I know that Dan Ryan's piece across the street. I look at that all the time because I'm here a lot, and I don't think it's a bad architectural product. I think the siding is what makes it not as appealing. The fact that it sits back and there's all that big expanse of parking. For me, that's not what not what I would want to see in the town center.
Yep.
So that's a big difference. And I think today's real estate market, I think that we can build something really special here. That's my goal.
No, I think you're onto something. So far, looks good to me.
Sorry, my access is still, seems like it might be an issue with fire department access for the back. I mean, you got street access from the front for those townhomes, but getting in to the back lots might be an issue.
Yeah, so with the, working with the fire marshal, the alley with this T-turnaround, make sure the truck can come down, particularly the two sticks that face to this open space.
Right.
The alley would be the fire access, and then obviously you have Fisher and moving for the others, but we would use the alley, and then we run that by the fire marshal.
1, 2, 3. How many total units? So I don't have to count.
28,
28 times 4 potential cars
yeah.
with one access. I guess it's probably not. I don't know. It seems tight to me. Just something to think about.
Conceptually, of all the concept plans we've seen for this property, I like this a lot. We've
I'm
seen.
gonna take that as a compliment.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have seen some of the others.
So I like where this is going.
Right.
I think we
So,
can
yeah,
make some
sorry.
tweaks and stuff to.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, there's no 7-Eleven hidden in there, right?
I did not say that.
We can't find it.
612, how about that? 612?
So my only question is, I really like this, and I like that you guys recognize that there might be a circle if we ever do the streetscape plan.
We are.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when the streetscape plan happens, my question is about those townhomes right on the corner there. Would they potentially be curvilinear to go around the circle a little bit more versus so flat and straight? So that way it's a little bit more aesthetically appealing when you're coming around the curve of the circle, or is this considered almost separate since there's the park in front?
It's interesting you say that, because my original land plan, when you say curvilinear, you're not talking about round townhouses, like buildings, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But I originally had two townhouse sticks, I'm big on things being radial and concentric, so I had gone to Gary with a plan that had the circle with them kind of facing the circle. And then Gary came up with 10 different concepts, and somehow we were talking about geometric shapes and how the triangle is a shape that, like, you know, in park planning is like a very special thing, and he convinced me. So what we're picturing there is, I have a picture in my mind of like brick columns with, like, you know, a pergola on top. And somehow, you know, stormwater management ends up being an issue all the time with this stuff. So somehow incorporating in that triangle, like stormwater management rain garden with like a plaza. And I also, a big fan of public site art. And I felt like that would be an opportunity there to actually have a competition, to, you know, to cite something there like artistically that, you know, maybe would change. But Gary convinced me that the triangle was the thing.
Just to add to that, with the triangle, we were able to get more green space on the corner, which I think is a benefit. But I think to your point, I think we had a couple of sketches. I think the sketches, Wade, you shared with me, they're more schematic right now. So as far as getting something more hard-lined, is that in the works, or what's the?
So, John, what I shared with them was actually 100% plans from Aero. So,
But those are a concept.
but those are concept
Yeah.
plans, but we don't have a
We
plan
don't
at
have-
this point.
It showed the dimension of the diameter of the circle, which pretty much kept within the existing intersection. And I think there's a couple opportunities, one with the other corner is obviously across the street with Dan Ryan, there's a larger, I presume that's an HOA space, but there's larger green space. But I think there would be an opportunity, which John was just sharing, if we did do a trellis, a pergola, something like that, that had an arc that related to the circle. I'd love to see, not our property, but I'd love to see something around all four corners, although something on this corner would obviously stand out if the other corners got catch
So
up. But I think-
he just talked you into it too, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he? Okay,
I'm
that's
following
what
your
he
train
does.
of thought. I am.
Must-have triangle.
And again, lot of opportunities, and again, it's, you know, not quite a blank piece of paper, but, you know, a lot more details to work out.
See how you got there.
And I'll start with a few brief passes.
I didn't say a few.
I'm gonna add on to Brian's comment about, I would like to see the second entrance utilized of Summerhill
Yeah,
instead of
we
the,
went back and forth with that.
Yeah.
yeah, so I like that idea.
And that's more just to push it further away from the.
Yeah, because if we had that circle, I don't know.
Get you closer to the other, to the intersection, that stop sign, which I would think would have a benefit.
No, I think that's definitely an option, how we can move that
Yeah.
around.
No, I think in general, when we take a look at that intersection, there's always a lot of traffic issues going on with that we resolve. And, you know, we want this plan definitely not to add to it, but to help alleviate some of those issues moving forward. And then when you do, you know, develop a preliminary plan, there's a proffer for this piece of property to dedicate that corner for portions of the roundabout also. Well, we do have the other corner already secured when Dan Ryan built those homes.
So wait, at this level, we're just looking at the basic concept,
Sure,
right?
so I just want to throw that feedback out there that this is definitely an intersection.
But we're not getting into the weeds of,
Not at this point, nope.
yep, just, yeah, so I like the concept.
And, you know, the obvious thing is that I know there's been a number of plans for commercial on this corner. And this, with it being the townhouses, you know, it's allowed for the zone, but it's different than some other concepts that have come forward. So we wanted to get feedback of that, if we're going in the right direction.
Do we have to, with the number of houses, do they have to have parkland, tot lot? I don't know what kind of requirements they're gonna be required to do.
We can take a look at that, that'll be part of the staff report coming back, exactly what's allowed, lot coverage, everything.
So there's actually.
So concept, and like I said, we're just,
Giving
like
feedback
it.
right now so they can develop that.
And
Okay.
he did ask a question, and that was, that, you know, we've seen a lot of retail space stuff going in here, and is this going in the right direction? I think we don't have an answer on that.
There
Yes.
actually is, between the townhouses and where the CVS is, it's a considerable space. And we have like an opportunity there that we're going to tie back out to Fisher Avenue. So we're not really sure what that space is, but that's something it's not a triangle, Gary.
It will.
It will be at
We'll
some
work on
point.
that. We'll work on that.
But, I mean, we were debating, what that space was, whether that was, strictly for this community, tot lot sort of situation, or whether it actually would be for the overall community. So, there is land there for open space.
So if the question was, do we like this direction of residential versus commercial? And they want our input. My input is, I like this direction. We have enough empty retail space here in town. I don't think we need more empty retail space. I'd rather see homes here in this lot. So that's my feedback on that.
Thank you.
I also think that your journey is a microcosm of the town's journey. Maybe not starting at Bassett's, but talking about getting a grocery store, right, and looking at that area, and it's been fruitless. I mean, maybe it would be great if we could put a grocery store there, but I think reality is different.
I did the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not enough people.
Yeah, been a lot of good, hard work done trying to get it in, and it's just,
Yeah.
just hadn't happened, so. Wade, as far as water capacity goes, water and sewer capacity?
They are, so this 12,753 gallons per day that they have been allocated, it's taken off of the, the credits that we have each year already.
Right.
So it's already counted
Sorry,
as,
right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're asking about the direction. I like the direction. I've always thought that, like, some kind of mixed use would be an interesting thing for Poolsville, but nobody seems to agree with me that and you all probably have a better idea about that than I do. But yeah, I mean, this is certainly, I think as somebody here said, the best plan we've seen for that lot, in my opinion. I do wonder, so you were talking about that little square, this is Donegan's, but you're not buying that, is that right?
Right.
Correct, and that's my understanding, that's not for sale right now, so that's.
Do we know what he hopes to do with that square? How does that
on
play into the
initial-
water
On
allocation?
the initial plan, there was a 6,000 square foot building that was slated to be there. And that
On
was
this
part
initial plan?
Of the center's plan, or Tractor's plan, when that was, no, not of this one, of
Right,
the
okay.
original one.
Okay.
When I first started this, when I first reached out to Jay or his brokers, I didn't actually talk to Jay initially. It was for retail use. And then there came a point in time, very quickly where we switched. And then I did, I had dialogue with Jay because I didn't want him to misunderstand what I was doing. And I said, this is our concept. And I think initially it tweaked him a little bit. And then, after I explained to him, what we were thinking, he agreed. And he thought it was, a good way to go. But he did want to hold on to that one rectangle there, which, how big was the building?
It was like 6,000 square.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that is. I don't see a retail use popping up there, but, a lot of stuff happens in this business that I don't see coming.
It's a grocery store.
So I was thinking 7-Eleven, but did I say that? I didn't.
Isn't
I didn't-
Dollar General's 9,000,
I didn't
right?
mean that.
It may be on
Yeah,
tape,
probably
but-
thinking for grocery
Yeah.
store.
No,
But-
I mean, I don't know what that could be, and I don't think, at this point, I don't think Jay does either.
Yeah,
Only
and,
dollar.
yeah. Wait, I just realized, you said 12,000 gallons?
Way over allocation for what he needs here.
Yeah, I mean, that's like probably 3 times, yeah, okay. So we're, in essence, gaining,
Yeah.
It's a positive.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
So, I guess I'll go last, or maybe not quite last. First off, Gary is absolutely right about the triangles. Like, He's absolutely right about those triangles. And I totally see where I like things on the corners to be slanted. You know, we had this discussion on a previous one because it makes the triangle. But with that being a centerpiece and then putting a signature thing in that triangle, it's like that's great. That's like nice work. He's,
I'm telling Mr. Coakley there to listen to your comment.
So I do like the triangles, I had to say. I would be very concerned about that green space behind there. I agree with the other commissioners that the entryway should probably be pushed back farther off of the Fisher intersection. No cut through to commercial zone, that would be,
Yeah.
you cannot do that. That is definitely hard on property values. I have to agree. I'm curious though, it looks like your sidewalk just dead ends. Would you consider like extending that to the entrance of Tractor Supply? Because there is a sidewalk on the other side of Tractor Supply.
I would consider that because, again, selfishly, my granddaughter goes to Poolsville Elementary School, and I want to see her walk in front of the houses with her skateboard and be able to walk up to the skate park.
Right.
That's a fantasy.
That's a
fantasy I have. So I drove by there on the way here to make sure it wasn't too far away so that I could commit to that. It's not far. There's not that much sidewalk to get there.
No, it's
because on
not
the
a
other
lot.
side of Tractor Supply entrance, there is sidewalk. going
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a gap.
Yeah, there's a gap.
To get to the sidewalk that's like just opposite their driveway and entrance.
Right.
Well, that's town property, but I would certainly commit to that connection.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that sometimes we do like gifts in kind. I don't know if that would tie into like gifting the town a sidewalk or something like that.
You know, in the original plan that was submitted, there was the original showed the sidewalk going all the way through there, so that would have been something that we picked up on staff report.
Okay. I do appreciate the rear loading built into car garages. That is a lot of storage. That is a lot of space for cars. That is a really great idea.
And seasonal decorations.
And seasonal decorations. And I guess the thing that I wanted to say for last that I like the most about this, are you familiar with Jane Jacobs? She wrote The Life and Death of the Great American City.
I did not. No, I'm not.
It's a wonderful book. You
How
should
old is
read
it?
it. I don't know. It came out in like 60s. Yeah, came out in the 60s.
I might have read it. I've forgotten a lot of what I've read.
One of the things that she says is that eyes on the street create safer streets. And so when you buy in and you put those porches right up against the sidewalks and up on the streets, people, as they own those homes, begin to take ownership of the street and ownership of the sidewalks. And I like the idea of them being closer to the street instead of set far back like our other townhomes, because it really will create like a safer little area there as you get the eyes on and the ownership of the streets. Yeah.
Well, one of the things, driving through Poolsville is seeing all the people walking around in the evenings, on the sidewalk, and it feels right to me. I mean, I do a lot of development. I'm doing this because I like it. I mean, I think it's a really neat place. I love your town.
So yeah, overall, I like the way it's going. There is probably a ton of work to go, and I will have many more questions if you can pursue this, but it's so much better than a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Any other comments, guys?
Well, if you want to just vote approval, we'll build it. I'm doing. Gary, yes?
I'll vote, but I don't think I'm allowed.
Yeah, we don't have anything to vote on, sorry.
Okay.
Gotta have a preliminary plan, just doing it before we start making
Well,
votes.
based on this, I think we're gonna keep drawing.
It'd be fantastic.
And,
And we'll be back.
yeah, we'll be back soon.
All right.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. I want my picture back.
That's right here. Sorry.
All right, that does it for new business. We're going to old business with the comprehensive plan visioning workshop planning, or whatever.
Sure, just want to touch base. I know it's Saturday, there's a chance of rain. Actually, it's 41% between 10 and 12 o'clock right now, 0.1% inches of rain, so
Right.
hopefully not much, but it is scattered thunder showers. So I won't be here personally. Lauren's
Will
gonna-
won't.
Will not.
Yep.
Lauren's going to be here. She's going to have her crew with her. Hopefully, as many of you guys can come out as you can just to help man the tables and
Yep.
I'll have some staff here. If they need to move picnic tables around, the big tents is going to be set out front. There's a moon bounce coming. They have live music that's going to come also. So just make it a party.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst, if it is so bad and severe, we can come in here and my guys can set tables up and we can do it in here if we need to.
Okay.
So, but either way, we should be covered.
Awesome. And what was the time for us to be here?
10. Well, it starts
It
at
starts
10,
at
so it'll be
10,
a quarter till.
Yeah, okay.
So I have on my calendar 10 to noon. Should I adjust my little calendar to like 9:30?
Sure.
Till 12?
I was, so I sent Lauren. Lauren's supposed to get a hold of me tomorrow with some specifics of what,
Okay.
everything's needed, so I'll be sending that out before Saturday.
Can I just say that I feel like a lot of people are unaware of the event still? I know that there was a Facebook post that went out, and I put it personally in my neighborhood, in my neighborhood's Facebook page, and I asked somebody from Mom's Club to put it. But I asked a lot of people, have you heard about this? Their response was no. When I looked in the monocle, I did not see it in there. So I just feel like we are potentially setting ourselves up for maybe not as much feedback as we had hoped.
I hope not, but I did send it out to every board member that we have. I sent it out, a news flash blast, which was 600 people emailed to. And then, we didn't make Randy's paper by the time I got the materials. So I will do another news flash again, another news blast, so I'll keep pushing that.
about it from the town.
Okay,
Yeah, I got that.
yes, it's on the marquee also.
Yeah, I've seen the marquee.
Here's the title: Help the town from failing. Right, and then get people alarmed.
Potentially, we should also do another post on Facebook, and not just from the town's Facebook page, but maybe in some of the town groups, because it's just not quite getting the traction I don't think it
Okay,
needed.
we'll put a hammer on it tomorrow then, definitely.
You may try like the language too, like, everything I saw looked good, but you may try something like, please share this to your own page or something like that.
Okay.
Try to get critical mass.
Hey, Brian, are you on Facebook?
Not really. I have an account, but
You have an account? Why don't you take a page out of Jim Brown's book and amplify the message?
I'm a little bit more low-key than Jim Brown.
Well, what about you, Kevin?
I'm
You'll do it. You'll amplify that message. I mean,
with all the right groups, we'll do it later on site.
that would be great, because I see your messages come through, and the name recognition is good enough that like people will stop and take a moment to read what you post.
I'll make sure it's on there. Thank you.
And usually they don't read it, they'll comment on it.
Additionally, one other thing, when I had forwarded the town message to Mom's Club to a member, she was like, "But what is this?" She was not clear from that. We all have an understanding of what we're talking about, but I don't know that
So if we
flyer
can
and
drive-
wording was
If we can
clear
drive it back
enough.
to the website, that's what the email blast does. So on the email, on the website, there's actually a story on the front page. There's actually a news flash picture going on. And I set up a whole page just for the comprehensive plan, what it is, what we're doing, with several other documents now. I'm starting to embed into that
Right.
page.
Can we make sure that that's linked into the Facebook post? Because I don't think that was originally, I think it was just the
I
flyer.
just did it the other day.
And so, okay, perfect, because I think that would really help people to understand what we're asking them to even come to.
Okay.
Letting them know there's gonna be a moon bounce and stuff.
Intro paragraph.
Thank you.
Describe it.
And you can just copy it right up there, I just what I put together.
wait, let's turn it off. Are we eating food at this thing?
There will be, what's that place up there? Locals is gonna come down, have some pastries and coffees and stuff to sell.
Oh, okay.
Not free.
So I'm just concerned about the barbecue at the firehouse. They sell out by noon, and so I want to make sure.
Somebody's bringing it back, Kevin.
Yeah.
Wait, are you putting in the Facebook post and anywhere that there's moon bounces and food and everything?
Yes, that's all part of it, yep.
Okay, perfect, because I don't think that was in that original one from like a week or so ago. I don't know. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That does it for our agenda items.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
I want to wait another 28 minutes because I said it was going to be 9:30.
No, I was closest.
I feel like it was closest without going over, and I think Brian and I won.
No.
Fair enough. All in,
8:59.
Do I have a second? Did you motion?
Yeah, motion.
He was a second.
Did you second?
I seconded
All in
it.
favor? Aye. Have a good night.
Nice job.
Yeah, it worked out. Thank you.
Do you know the Dagles?
Nagels, that sounds familiar.
They live out on Partnership Road.
Yeah.
Their son Isaac was just medevaced for an emergency. I don't know what's going on, but I got a message during the day.
Who are they? How old are they?
So the dad's a brain surgeon.
Yeah,